Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of 15 Good Minutes. Coach B here. How are we doing today, Freddie?
Doing well. You?
Doing good. Charles, how are you, man?
Wonderfully excellent, man.
Wonderfully excellent. There's that double positive, right? LB, what's up, man?
I can't get over Charles and this double, whatever he says. I gotta,
Yeah,
I
see,
gotta, I gotta come up
right?
with
I'm
my
still
own
trying to figure it out.
catchphrase now.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a drink to that one.
Do that. Hey, listen, we got a topic today that I'm really excited about, and we have a special guest here in Ty Hubbard from GMG Sports and Entertainment that's going to help us talk a little bit about NIL, name, image, likeness, and some of the intricacies of that we've been talking about for a long time. Ty, welcome, my friend. Glad you're here. Really appreciate you taking the time to join 15 Good Minutes today.
Absolutely appreciate it, gentlemen. Definitely looking forward to, insightful conversation and, sharing some of my experience and, being able to answer any questions that you all have for me.
All right, hang on a sec. I got Jeff popping in now, so this is good. We can get rocking at the same time. I think he should be coming in. Yeah, he's coming in now. There's Mr. Slade. How you doing, sir?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. How you doing? Hold on. Let me make sure I'm looking good enough for you.
You looking good? You look good here, buddy.
All right. Gotta give him a good face on.
So for the audience, this is Jeff Slade. I've met Jeff before. He is the vice president of GMG Sports and Entertainment. Also with GMGSE as is Ty. Jeff, we were just doing an overview. This is our team. We got Freddie, we got Charles, we got LB, we got myself. Really appreciative of the time that you and Ty are able to give us today to help us understand NIL and a little bit more about that. So what I'm going to do is just give you a little intro and then turn it over to you guys because, you're the experts, right? So for me, NIL used to be the thing where if a player sold a jersey at the student union or something like that, he or she would get some representation for it. Now I understand there's the collective and there's some other things that are associated with that. So what we want to do is, can you give us an overview of what NIL is today and how does it work? And then from there, we like to just pop in and kind of pepper you guys with some questions.
Yeah, sure. So basically, NIL or NIL is an external entity of the university, right? In most cases, you can think of it like a booster club at your local high school, right? So they have an external club from the school that donors or alumni or whomever can donate money to. And then from that, the university can determine, the university typically don't determine, they try to be hands off with it, but they'll say, hey, we really want this kid and we want to give this kid some collective money. So they'll give him or her an allotment for the season. And from there, the collective, well, that's the collective. The NIL is more so them having the ability to sell their gear, come up with a brand, and then kind of create some uniforms or T-shirts and sell that, or get sponsorship from Canes or other large corporations. Any restaurants or drink or even Gatorade or shoes. Jordan or Nike could endorse the players and from that perspective. Anything you want to add, Ty?
Yeah. So, what Jeff described is both a collective and, NIL itself. And, like you said, NIL being name, image, and likeness just allows college athletes to now, benefit financially from selling their name to be used and marketed in a certain way, image of themselves or their likeness. So that could be like a caricature of them or anything like that. So, I believe it was about July of 2020 when it first, came to be. And, there's a lot that still needs to be solidified with it as far as like regulation. State to state, there are different rules as far as how you can engage in NIL as an athlete and, what representation you need and, what qualifications representation needs in different states. So definitely a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that are still looking to be, unified as far as the space. But yeah, that's essentially like how it works. And, it's continuing to grow, and we're definitely seeing a lot of athletes benefit from it.
All right, so I'm gonna ask the first question, LB,
Okay.
because I know you got some. So here's my thing, right? And this is just generic scenario. I'm some stud athlete. I'm good. I'm really like that. And it's time for me to go to college. How does the negotiation take place? And is it safe to assume, Ty, that uh, one school has a bigger pool of resources for their collective than another? And you know what I mean? So can you walk me through a little bit, like when you have this athlete that you know is going to be a prominent D1 prospect, um, how does that kid and the parents and the family, how do they even begin to have that conversation with these schools?
Yeah, so it's definitely a, you know, blurred line between that because, as it stands, like the schools and the collectives aren't necessarily supposed to be working hand in hand. But, as far as negotiations go, parents and their representation usually would meet with the collective to see, potentially what an NIL package could look like for that particular athlete. That's just kind of how the negotiation would be on that side. I think there's a lot of other things to consider though, outside of just what the collective might be able to provide. Like, is this a good market for you to sell your NIL in other ways? Obviously, if the kid's going to play or not is going to, take quite a toll on, what their NIL value would be. But that essentially would be the first step, with the NIL settlement now being preliminarily approved and most likely eventually going to be fully approved by the 25-26 season. The schools will start paying kids directly or student athletes directly, through the pool of money that will be allotted to them through the settlement. So I think from there we're going to see a lot more of negotiating directly with the schools, the coaches and staff and things like that to kind of have a bit more clarity there. But as it stands now and how it has been for like the past year or so is, them kind of negotiating with the collectives after they might have signed like a letter of intent or something like that.
Yeah, in many cases, you try to like Ty said, there's a blurred line there, and you want to make sure you don't cross that line. And because the NCAA rule is you don't negotiate a collective before signing your letter of intent.
Mhm.
So you need to make sure that you're cautious in how you approach that, or you shouldn't approach it. Your intent is to sign with a university to because of basketball, or in our case, because we represent basketball players. You want to sign because that's where you want to go to play basketball, right? And then once you're at the university, then you can negotiate your collective. But in many cases, what the collective budget is for a university, right? You can do research and you can find out online and kind of have an idea if a university is giving the team, not one player, but given the team has a collective for each individual team, a certain allotment of money for that team. So you have an idea. You may not know exactly what you'll get when you get there, but you have an idea that they do have quote unquote money available. So
Okay, I got a couple questions. One, a comment first for what you just said, how that works. We all agree that that's ass backwards, right? It was just me.
Well, no, because if I understand what you're saying, LB, it's like I really don't know what I'm getting.
Right. That's
I
what I'm
have to
saying.
sign this letter of intent before we can have the conversation.
Right.
That's the way it's supposed to go. That's the right, the air quotes.
Okay.
That's the way it's supposed to go.
come on,
I'm
Brady.
pretty
Come on,
sure.
Brady.
That's what I'm saying. Because legally, I mean, yeah, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I need to know that going in. Because if not, I'm gonna go to school Y instead of school X. I mean, but
Yeah,
that's
and then
yeah.
Yeah, and I know before this, like the UNLV quarterback situation was mentioned, and because there's not as much clarity, someone might think things aren't solidified prior to then. So,
Right.
someone might think they're getting a certain package, and then the university determines, oh, that might not be your value or something like that. So I think, once a lot of these, laws get, written fully and established, that, we'll see a lot more just clarity throughout the entire environment for everyone to know the rules and exactly how you can negotiate and determine what your value is and things like that.
So that was the question I wanted to ask. Who or what entity is in charge of is there a NIL czar or is there a board? I mean, who
Yeah.
is, I mean, because I've never heard of, if there is such a person and or board, I've never heard of them. So
Yeah.
how is this, who's running it?
Yeah, like I mean, right now it's like some people refer to it as like the Wild Wild West because it's
Yeah.
like every state has different laws pertaining to, how NIL within their state is governed and like what you can and can't do.
I'm sorry,
There's
I'm gonna start right there if I could. So who so with each state can do their own thing. So
yeah.
then within each state, then what part of the government of each state is that the treasury? Who in each state is in managing the NIL for that state? Let me ask that question.
Well, Secretary of Labor is the one who makes the
okay.
laws for that particular state. But as far as the collective is concerned, there's a president or a czar in your case. There's a czar for the collective that is over top of it, and then most collectives have a board, right? So there is some governance of the collective. It's not just a loosey goosey type of organization. Is really and established. Well, I'll say this for the major university, the Power Fives. There's a board and there's a president of the collective, so they're not just randomly handing out money to every player.
And that collective is per school.
Per school, yes.
And then there's also compliance departments at the school because like the collectives are technically not officially a part of the school, but there's compliance departments in each athletic department that determine like how student athletes can interact with agents, what they can and can't do from an NIL perspective. Like some schools have industries that you're not allowed to get an NIL deal in, different things like that. So like I said, different schools, different states, there's a lot of different rules. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why, a lot of these student athletes should have someone just kind of versed in those rules, like in their corner to help assist them through the processes.
It's a mess.
So you would say that the universities, the collectives are independent, right? However, they have a vested interest in the success of said program, football, basketball, whatever the case may be. They are independent of the university. They could be former alums, boosters, but we're gonna just step out to the side, do our own thing to help push the football program, basketball, track, whatever the case may be, to get whomever we need. To me, I think that there's an issue. Florida State University, DJ, whatever his name is, right? He was terrible this year, right? Terrible. And I have a friend of mine. He says that Florida State made a mistake that they stuck with DJ too long. I totally agree they did, right? However, my opinion is I felt that the individuals holding the purse, cutting the checks, right? When you say, hey, I need $700,000 for this one player, as a coach, you cannot just bench this individual. Would you agree that a coach would have to get buy-off because the coach is the one that's probably backdoor going to have these discussions with those collectives saying, hey, I need X amount of dollars for said player, right? It's just, if I give you $1 million, and you don't perform, well, I have to report to everybody in the collective to why I'm sitting you down. And we've given you $1 million. How do you feel about that?
Well, you made a valid point. Well, you said back door. I don't know if there's a back door, but you said back door. but if that if it's made and that player is given that money, is all for potential, right? I mean, we see it every day, all day in the NBA where players are paid off of potential. So when you're recruiting a player, you're bringing him in and you're making him an offer based off of his potential. And if that coach is going in through the back door and say, hey, we're giving this kid $6 million, $600,000, and we have to play this player, I don't think the collective is saying whether the coach has to play the player or not, but the coach is probably aware that that player is making $600K. So he has a decision to make whether he plays him or not. And if that player is gonna stay at that university. So there's some uncertainty when you're giving a player money up front. So, it's at the expense of the collective or the booster club or the donors, whether they, make a good decision or a bad decision. That's business. It's a business decision.
See, and that's the thing. Like, how do you balance, right? Hey, I need $700K for this player. Player's not doing well. I want to bench him. But then now the collective, well, you said you need $700K for this individual, right? He's not performing, right? How do you balance that when I come back to the collective and say, hey, I really want this player when the last player that was worth 700,000 didn't do well? How do you balance that?
That's got to be a crapshoot, Freddie, right?
It's not the player's responsibility to balance it. It's the school and the collective's responsibility. So it's on their side of the fence.
Yeah. Look at the New York Jets. Look at all the people they brought in.
Exactly.
On potential.
Charles, do you have a question? Because if you don't, I have another one.
Yeah, Jeff, Ty. So right now I'm hearing about the collectives and all the different rules in different states, and now the colleges are going to be able to directly do NIL deals. But still, it still seems like the wild, wild west to me, right? Because if every state is making their own rules, right, and you don't have a centralized body that basically governs the whole thing, I'm not against kids getting money and going for the likenesses and all that stuff. My issue is basically it just seemed like there was no regulation there, right? So if you have an NIL whatever czar, right? That person is just like a person in Congress. Somebody can go lobby him, right, to do this or do that, right? When you don't have any kind of centralized structure there, right? I don't think this is a very good way to conduct business for the college athlete, right? And for the colleges, right? That's my opinion about it. But I'm understanding, Jeff, Ty, you guys are basically more involved in this decision. Do you see, is there some standard regulation basically that you just can't cross, right? Or is it just like you said, it's from state to state?
Well, it's go ahead, Ty. I'll let you speak.
I was gonna say there are a few rules that are generally applied across all states, but from state to state there are a few just like nuance rules. A lot of them are applied to agents as well, and like what you need to qualify as an agent in that state to represent a player and help them to monetize their NIL. But that's what I would say in regards to that. And as far as the players getting paid directly from the schools, I think that'll just bring a lot more transparency to like what the market value looks like for the different athletes, because I think people will be able to it'll be a lot more clear like what these different student athletes are getting, because we know like the pool of money is this much, and then it's going to be dispersed in these ways. So I think it's going to help a lot from that perspective. And I think as the years go on, that Congress and the like will put something together. Hopefully that'll kind of bring some more uniformity to the entire NIL landscape. But yeah, that'll probably be my take on that.
But Ty, Jeff, do you guys agree that uniformity is needed?
Oh, for sure.
Right. That you need to have some type of governing body. I know a lot of people are against the NC2A, right? But at least you have a centralized governing body, right, to basically govern what happens in NCAA sports, right? now that you had this come on, right? I mean, a governing body, I would think would be in the best interest of everyone. I would think.
Yeah, and I think that's the attempt of the antitrust settlement is to try to put some organization to the whole collective and how much student athletes are getting paid, right? So basically, the NCAA will give each university an allotment of money. Say, I think the antitrust is like 2.78 billion, and then I think each school would get around 21 million, and that would be allotted to the university. Now you're still going to have some disparity there because you're going to have football and basketball are going to be the primary sports, right? So now what about women's lacrosse or women's basketball, right? So now the school is going to determine how that money is divvied up at the university once they get it. So there's still going to be, some dissension among the group about how much each individual is getting. But once it's given to the sport, then each player will get an equal portion of whatever the sport gets. So that will balance it out some, but it's still going to be a little dusty, not really clear. So
is that going to be the antitrust? Is that going to be annually going forward? Because I was reading up on that. So okay, and I think that's a good thing, right? Because I think the 20 million, for programs like in the SEC or the Big Ten, that's a drop in the bucket. However, that helps. That helps it for football. That helps for roster management with the bottom half of your roster, right?
Yeah.
While you still have the collective, you use that for the big fish, but you use the 20 million or whatever. And I do think, obviously, I think football and basketball is probably, where most of that pie is going to be cut, depending on the university. And then everyone else, fall in line and get whatever. And I definitely think that's a good thing, the antitrust settlement. That's a good thing, but I don't think it really addresses the issue because, you're still going to have programs like Notre Dame, Ohio State, universities with these big collectives, right? They're still, for those big universities, it's just the rich getting richer, right? It's not going to help a team like Wake Forest necessarily. It's not going to help a Wake Forest or UCF. FAU or whatever the case may be. It's really helping the bigger programs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think as part of it, like that 21 million number is going to go up incrementally each year, and I think at some point, hopefully, there'll be, because we're moving closer and closer to like pay for play and it just being a completely professional environment. So, possibly, in the future there'll be some type of collective bargaining agreement, and then like they'll be able to kind of disperse the funds more evenly. But definitely agree that, like a Alabama program or something like that is, seeing a lot more than the 21 million that'll be allotted to the players.
Hey, look, I know we're at the top of the hour, and Ty has the book. I want to thank Ty for joining from GMG Sports and Entertainment. This is a conversation that could go on forever, and I am going to ask Jeff another question, but I just wanted to say to you, Ty, thanks, buddy. Appreciate everything that you're doing, and if anybody on our program can ever be of assistance to you guys, just reach out and let us know. It's been a pleasure having you on today.
Absolutely, really appreciate you guys bringing me on. Definitely want to stay connected to all of you. So yeah, hopefully we'll be in touch. But thanks a lot.
You bet.
All right.
Yeah.
Question for you, Jeff, and I mean it may sound obvious, but and it kind of piggybacks on what Freddie was asking about, the player that may, it's a crapshoot, how much you give a player, and then whether or not he or she lives it up. So my question is this renegotiated annually for like today you go in, you have an inbound freshman coming in, you negotiate whatever for that kid. When he or she becomes a sophomore, do you do it all over again?
yeah, it's just like your scholarship. I mean, most people don't know your scholarship is year to year, right? So is the collective. So when you sign it for a 1 year collective, and then you have to renegotiate for the following year. I mean, you have the option in some cases to sign a 2 year deal because if a school is gonna give you a large amount, they want some semblance of commitment, right? So
Sure.
you could get a longer term deal, right? So, but for the most part, yeah, they're year to year.
Wow,
Hey,
that's interesting. Go ahead, Charles.
so Jeff, so with this collective bargaining agreement, this is going to hurt athletes like Livy Dunn, right? That's going to hurt athletes like that. Am I correct or incorrect?
No, Livy Dunn is she has a lot of NIL stuff. Like most of her money is coming from NIL, so she's not going to be affected by this at all. If anything, she's going to probably make more money because
Okay, okay.
yeah,
So
I mean because it depends on.
I was just asking that question, and obviously, men. This is money's going to be more directed toward the men, but what about the women, right? Women's sports like volleyball or gymnastics, and she's pretty popular, or women's basketball, right? How's that going to affect them with this new antitrust agreement?
It's going to be based off of the I guess the popularity of that sport at that particular university, right? Like LSU, Livy Dunn, their gymnastics is a big deal, right? Nebraska volleyball, women's volleyball is a big deal. So it's going to depend on the university and how important what they value, how they value that particular women's sport. I think that's going to be the big thing. But then with women's sport now, with women advocacy, I think it would be it'd be a stretch for any school to make the decision to not create an equal environment. So I think that is going to play a major part now too.
Roger that.
LB, you got anything for Jeff before we let him go?
No, I've heard enough.
Do you feel smarter?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even know that these deals were yearly based, which I mean makes sense, but I didn't know they were that they should do that in pro sports.
Well, here's the thing, LB. The reason I was asking is because if I look at Freddie's example, what if the opposite were true, right? The kid that Freddie said was a slug and wasn't worth 700. Mm-hmm. What if the kid got you to the Final Four? So when we do that renegotiation, I would think that we should be able to say, I got 725 this year or whatever it is. And if that's the case, to me, the incentive is there for the student athlete, to try to perform better his or her case, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They need that in the pro. They need that in pro sports. These guys get 10 year. I'm sorry for the go ahead.
No. The individual that I was speaking of, he has no more eligibility, so he's done. Right. Okay. Now, to your point, if I'm a freshman and I ball out and I'm getting 700 and I'm supposed to get 800 next year, and we win the national championship, well, then guess what? I want more money. If you don't give me more money, guess what? I jump my ass in the transfer portal.
Then you should go. We got more room. We're gonna take your 800,000 and we're gonna pay LB to come because he only want 200,000 and I'm plus 600,000 in the pool.
Right.
Taking any losses. The player is not taking any losses. To me, the biggest thing out of all of this, right? And we hear the dollars being thrown around and yada yada yada. The biggest thing that I don't hear, and to me, truthfully, to be honest, is two things. One is the most important thing, the taxation process, right? Because now you're putting these, so in certain cases, 17, 18-year-olds in an adult environment as it pertains to paying federal and state taxes, right?
I don't have a problem with that. They're making adult money. Learn how to do your damn taxes, or hire somebody like Mr. Slade and that company to take care of it for you. Yeah. I don't think that's a big issue at all.
That's a good problem.
That's a good problem to have, right? Speaking of good problems to have, we're about out of time, so I want to take this time to thank Jeff Slade, Vice President, GMG Sports Entertainment. Truly, man, really do appreciate you taking the time to come and join us today. It's a fascinating topic, one that I did not have to deal with when I was coaching, right? And I know what you and Ty and Marquise and all the guys over at GMGSE are doing, it's amazing. And from all of us, man, we really do appreciate you guys.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you guys having me, and especially since you have that Carolina gear on. I'm a Carolina boy. So
hey, listen, we had a tough game last night. Very tough. We're losing to we came back in the second half. It was rough. But I was rocking with him in Hawaii, so good luck to the Tar Heels. That's all we got time for. Again, Jeff, if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here for you and the whole team over at GMG Sports Entertainment. Thanks for joining 15 Good Minutes today.
Sound good. Appreciate it.